Hello, everyone. My name is Suzanne Egan, and I'm an associate professor at the School of Law, where I teach mainly human rights, international human rights and European human rights. I teach on the postgraduate programs that I'm going to speak about today, and also on our undergraduate programs. And I've been asked to speak in general terms about our offerings in terms of taught LLM programs. If you've had a chance to look at our website, before this webinar, you'll know that in addition to the MSc programs and the Masters in Common Law that some of my colleagues were speaking about today, the law school runs a wide range of dedicated LLM programs. And these include a general LLM program, which is dedicated, I suppose, or aimed at well-qualified graduates in law and related disciplines, just basically including modules on a wide range of areas related to national, European and international law, which allows students to specialise in both public and private law dimensions. And in addition then to that general LLM program, we also offer dedicated master's programs across a range of specific fields. And these include an LLM in intellectual property and information technology, which is an area, of course, areas which have increasing global significance, an LLM in international commercial law, an LLM in European law and public affairs, the LLM in criminology and criminal justice, and also then the LLM in international human rights, which is the one that I myself teach on. Now, each of these programs follows basically the same structure, whereby students are required to take 60 credits of taught modules over the course of the year. Each of these LLMs, incidentally, is a full-time 1-year program, but you can do it part-time over 2 years. So you take 60 credits, whether you're doing it part-time or full-time, you take 60 credits of taught modules, and that will include a core group of modules relevant to the specific subject area, and then a choice from further relevant offerings. And then the remaining 30 credits you obtain by writing a dissertation in your chosen field. So most of the programs, the fascinating thing about most of these programs, I think, is that they are broadly interdisciplinary. So, for example, the LLM in international human rights, which I teach on, is run in conjunction with the School of Politics and International Relations at UCD. And so some of the core modules students take on the LLM in international human rights are from the law school, and then they will take 2 core modules from human rights offerings in the School of Politics. And then the remaining modules they choose from, they can completely exclusively focus on other human rights offerings in the School of Law. All the other LLMs are also broadly interdisciplinary, the LLM in European law and public affairs, the LLM in criminology and criminal justice, and likewise the information technology and intellectual property LLM. And the great thing about this, therefore, is that in designing each of these programs, we're basically seeking to push students beyond the fundamental knowledge which they will already have picked up in all of these various different subject areas from their undergraduate fields of study, but also basically to push them beyond that and to bring into play more in-depth knowledge from a wide range of different perspectives that come into play in the various fields in questions. We also aim to equip our students in the LLM programs, very importantly, with key analytical skills that they are going to need to draw on in working in any professional context related to the relevant field in question. So if I speak, for example, about the LLM in international human rights law, for example, our aim there is to equip students there with the full in-depth knowledge and understanding of the very important intersections that come into play in between the fields of law, politics and international relations in the field of human rights, so that if they choose to move on and work as professional lawyers or as advocates in policy bodies in the field, they will have the skills and the understanding of the way in which human rights norms operate basically both at the national and the international level. And this will be a very interdisciplinary knowledge base that they will have acquired. So that's basically, each program is designed to help students acquire that level of in-depth knowledge, as I say, by requiring a couple of core modules, but then opening up other modules as choices from the remaining credits available. Now, you will know probably as well, I hope, if you've browsed our website, that in terms of the range of modules that will be on offer to students across all of these LLMs, we do have, I suppose, the largest professional full-time faculty in Ireland. And we have very strong links also, many of us through our research networks. All of our staff are involved in research centres and networks based in the School of Law, but also internationally and beyond. So we have a wide range of interests amongst us. And so students get, therefore, to choose from a hugely broad number of modules in all sorts of fields related to each of the LLM programs on offer. So when I think again of the LLM in international human rights law, academics in the School of Law, for example, are involved in human rights work and academic research throughout a range of different fields, from asylum law and practice to human rights education to law of privacy and cultural heritage. Vastly different and diverse areas of human rights, and that students therefore get a chance to take modules taken by in a wide range of areas, even within the field of human rights alone. So the teaching on our programs is, all of our programs is basically interactive. We really do aim to develop students' oral, presentation and analytical skills. And we regard these as obviously key attributes for professional learning and development. And they are attributes that are widely in demand, as I mentioned earlier, in a wide range of professional settings. So teaching will be interactive, where students are encouraged to contribute to conversations based on materials that they will have read in advance. We do a lot of emphasis on group work, and many colleagues engage with group project work as well, so that students get to work with each other and to learn from their peers, as well as from the various members of staff. And also then assessments there's a broad range of methods of assessments then that we deploy in the various modules, and these are again linked to the emphasis on interactive learning. So for example, if I take my own module on international human rights, one element of the assessment in the last couple of years has been to ask students to write blog posts on a particular area of interest to them relevant to the course. And this is to encourage students to be able to summarize an area and to present it in an accessible way to non-experts in their field, and to pick up the skill of blogging, which of course is extremely important, I suppose, in terms of education on human rights at the moment. And it gives students a chance also, hopefully, to use the work that they do on the LLM in a very productive manner, perhaps seeking to get the blog published online. So finally then, in speaking of assessment, one of course the key elements of each of the LLMs is the requirement to write a dissertation. And this is, again, as I mentioned, comprises 30 credits of each of the LLM programs. So the dissertation is always in the field which the student, a topic which a student will choose, in conjunction then with advice from a dedicated advisor, which the law school provides for each student. Every student on the LLM program will take part, or will automatically be registered in our a dedicated dissertation module, which they take usually in the second semester, which basically brings students through a series of classes on the skills and research methods and methodologies that they will need to draw on in terms of writing a dissertation. And it gives students the chance, therefore, to write an original piece of work. They have an advisor that they meet in a series of meetings early on in the second semester. And the objective then is that by the time students come to the summer term, they're ready to actually fully engage in the task of writing their dissertations, all exams and all the taught modules behind them. So finally then, I suppose I'll mention the fact that each of the LLM modules, there is an opportunity for some students to study abroad on our European Masters Exchange Programme. This is the Comparative International and European Law Programme, which is open to registered full-time LLM students. They can apply, therefore, to take part in this program, where they get the opportunity to have their thesis jointly supervised with academic colleagues in certain institutions in Europe. And there's also an opportunity for an LLM exchange at the University of Melbourne. So these are basically the main attributes, I suppose, of our LLM programs. I'm very happy now to take any questions any of you may have. I'll be able to answer them here, hopefully, and afterwards also in our law booth.
Thanks, Suzanne. My name is Una Kelly. I'm the marketing manager in the School of Law, and I have some questions here, but please keep the questions coming in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. The first question relates to how many contact hours would there normally be in an LLM?
Well, normally, as I say, you'd have 6 modules, about 3 modules per semester. And usually the contact hours would be 2 hours a week per module. And those would be the face-to-face lectures, which of course we can't run at the moment, but we hope to be back there very, very soon, subject to public health requirements. But we're running our modules, obviously, online at the moment.
And then we have a question about class sizes. People are wondering how many would be in the classes traditionally.
Traditionally, we try and keep our LLM modules, as I wouldn't say small as possible, but we try and limit the modules to about 30 to 35 but it can be widely varied, obviously, depending on the subject matter in question. But I'm thinking of my own modules in particular. I would have usually about 30, 35 in international human rights, maybe a few less in the European, as opposed to the undergraduate program, where you'd have literally over 100 students. So it does lend itself to much greater and capacity for interactive discussion, etc., and group work.
Great. Somebody's asking about fees too, and is there a possibility, do they need to be paid in one go or in installments? So I think I can answer that. Yes, you can pay them in installments. You can pay them over 3 occasions across the year, because it is a 1 year that you're signing up for with an LLM. So your first time you pay your fees is in September. You pay a third in January, and then a third again in May, at which point you're going into the semester or the trimester where you'll be working on your dissertation. There's a number of questions coming in here. Can non-EU students pay in 3 installments as well? The answer is, I assume so, but I don't know. So if you if you want to email us afterwards, and we can answer that if you email lawpostgraduate@ucd.ie, or if you just go to the fees booth. There is a fees booth there today, but I see no reason why non-EU can't pay in 3 installments also. Then there's a question about the international students, the ratio in classes. And I suppose a difficult question is, where are they from? You know, so which could be anywhere really, isn't that right, Suzanne?
That's right, yeah. And I suppose there's always variation from year to year. But that is something that we have noticed, which is very, very welcome, that we have a very diverse, growing diversity in our student body. And so really students are coming in from all over the world to take our courses. And I notice it in particular in my international human rights class, with students from a wide range of across the globe.
Great. And there's a question then about readings. Are there any readings that you could recommend to someone who's interested in the subject? Now, obviously, human rights is your speciality area, but if somebody was interested in taking an LLM in human rights, where would they go and find, or how could they find something that they might research in advance?
Well, my advice, I suppose, would be to get yourself one of the very general textbooks at the outset in international human rights, even though you'll be doing it at a sort of specialized level when you get in to the program. For example, in my own course, for every seminar, I'll assign a range of readings from journal articles, etc. But I'll always say to students, it's helpful to get one of the sort of leading textbooks in the area. I'm not going to mention particular names at the moment, but you know, a text on international human rights, say from Oxford University Press, etc., will always be a good basis on which to begin one's journey, I suppose, in the field of international human rights.
Great. And then there's a question about assessment. And I know you mentioned, you know, the classes being interactive and, you know, writing blogs and that kind of thing. But what would be the traditional assessment with LLMs, exams, and what time of the year and that kind of thing?
Okay, yeah, that is something that's difficult to generalize on insofar as every module coordinator has responsibility for setting their own specific assessments. But the basic broad range, some colleagues may still deploy the exam, but I think increasingly colleagues are moving to take-home examinations in the LLM program as opposed to turn up at the exam center and write your answers. We would also, many colleagues would also still have dedicated essays. That's always helpful when you're starting, you know, when you're at the end of the day, you're going to have to write a dissertation. So writing an analytical essay for any particular module is always helpful. But we also would have, as I say, short projects, group projects, individual projects. My own would be, as I mentioned already, I would do a blog post, but I will also have students sometimes as part of their assessment. So it's a broad church in terms of the sort of design of the assessments, but we try to coordinate as much as we can so that students aren't overloaded with anything of the one nature, put it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, and someone is asking then about the dissertation and, you know, how much attention do you get from a supervisor? You know, is it one lecturer to multiple students or one-to-one?
Oh, right. Yeah, no, that's a very good question. So we have this dedicated dissertation module, and I can speak to that because I have coordinated this module where we'll have at least about 12 hours of contact hours where different members of staff will come in and speak about their own chosen method of research method and methodology. So somebody will come in and talk about the doctrinal method and how you deploy that of research. Someone else another academic colleague will speak about the socio-legal method of research. Someone else will give a dedicated class specifically on criminological research, etc. So all the students in the LLM programs come to each of these seminars, and again, they're interactive. You can ask questions, etc. And in addition then to doing the dissertation module, which by the way will also include information exchange with our dedicated librarian, our law librarian, on how to use all the different search engines in doing your research for your dissertation. Also on how to make an ethics application if you need to do so, if you're going to, for example, interview people for your dissertation. So you get that background training. And then in addition to that, the school will assign one member of academic staff to each student. And then that way you get to meet on an individual basis with your academic advisor at least 3 times in the course of the second trimester. So you get to discuss what your initial ideas are. You go away again, maybe refine them, come back to your advisor again, have another discussion. You will discuss your research proposal, which you submit then. So you get an advice on a one-to-one basis, as well as the overall module, which you'll be doing in preparation for the dissertation.
Great. Okay, well, we've one final question, and it's a very broad question, which is studying a master's very different to undergraduate study?
It's different insofar as it's more in depth. I think it gives students a real chance to get to know an area and become expert in their field, but also, I suppose, the element that we try to foster here of it being an environment where you get to learn by active learning, as opposed to in the undergraduate programs, which of course by their very nature, there are often lots and lots of students taking lectures, etc. So in the postgraduate programs, I suppose our emphasis is to deploy as much as we can interactive methods where students get to participate a lot in the learning process actively. And in general terms, that's something that students embrace and welcome and pretty well enjoy, and get to know each other as well, which is another bonus of the programs.
Okay, well, we've one final question, which is a little bit unfair, and I'm not even sure it's something we can answer online, which is somebody has an offer from TCD and UCD in IP and IT, and they're wondering, how do they choose between the two?
Well, I think that is a question. Of course, you're going to ask somebody in UCD, and they're going to say, "Come to UCD, we'd love to have you," and same for TCD. But I suppose, like any choice, have a look at the range of modules that you're going to offer in each of the law schools. Again, it's not my specialist area, so I wouldn't be able to give advice on what's going on in Trinity in relation to it. But Trinity's a great law school, and so are we. So you're spoiled for choice.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our graduates end up teaching or lecturing in TCD, and some of our lecturers are from TCD as well. So I mean, it's there. There is a lot of sharing of information, and I think the reality is you should probably look at who is the module coordinator as well. Too in the case of IP and IT, TJ McIntyre, and if you look up TJ and see that he's very specialist in his area, so that can influence people as well. But there are many other factors. Some people. Exactly. Because they love our law school, because we have a lovely, bright, modern law school, which neither of us are in today, but in the autumn.
We really hope we'll be back there in September, though, don't we, Una? Yeah, the new law school has been a fantastic resource, I think, for students. I mean, that's one of the nice things. I remember early on when one of the students came to speak to me about an issue that, an academic matter, and they said, I just love being in this law school. So it's brought a great change, I think, for us that we do have, and we do miss them, but we hope to.
And on that note, I think attending today, we're going to be in the booth now to answer any other questions that you might have. But if you have any questions afterwards that you'd like to ask, please email us on lawpostgraduate@ucd.ie at any time, or look at our website, which is ucd.ie/law. We'd be happy to answer any questions. You've plenty of time. It's early days. Also look into our scholarships. There are some very generous scholarships on offer for LLM study. So we look forward to seeing you in the autumn, or answering your questions in the meantime. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.